Welcome back, tricksters, to another Top 5 with Tricks. Today we're going through the top 5 superhero games, and it's a little bit different. Normally I'd show you guys what would be generally considered the top 5 in a specific genre, but this time I'm leaning more into my own personal choices due to superheroes being very near and dear to my cold cybernetic heart. To be a good superhero game, it's got to have a good story, but most of all, it's got to make you feel powerful. I think these games all hit that mark. As you guys know by now, I won't be saying anything about how liking the video would help us out huge and becoming a supporter would be really amazing. Yeah, we won't be mentioning any of that stuff. Insomniac Games released Miles Morales after the success of the previous title, Spider-Man, in 2020. The game was going to be a DLC for the Spider-Man title, but then was fully released as a standalone game. Takes everything people loved about the previous title and built on it. The story and scope of the game is not as large as a Spider-Man title, but the storytelling, the bond you feel with the main character, and the variations in abilities and tech take this game to another level. The combat style and abilities means that you're fighting multiple enemies at once, and sometimes you're able to do so without taking any damage at all. This gives you a real feeling of being a powerful superhero. The progression system keeps you wanting to keep playing and exploring those side missions to squeeze out every ability and story that you can. Movie Into the Spider-Verse exposed the Miles Morales character to more than just the Spider-Man comic book fans, and Insomniac did a great job capitalizing on the interest everyone showed in this unique character. They wrote Miles in such a relatable way that you can't help but connect with him and his struggles. This really pulls you in and makes it hard to leave the game alone for any length of time, wanting to see this little guy progress and how things unfold. The game will run you about $60 and a must-have for any superhero fan. Arkham Asylum was developed by Rocksteady Studios with Warner Bros. Game Montreal and released in 2009. For the sake of this top 5, I'm referring to Arkham Asylum as it was the first of the sequence of Arkham World games that were developed, but they're all phenomenal. They all work cohesively to give you an overarching story and progression of the Batman character over the span of 4 games. With each game being an evolution of its predecessor, the devs do a great job at rolling forward the core components that players loved and adding new content to make the next game in the series feel like a fresh take. The combat system very much gives you the feeling of being powerful as you fight multiple opponents at the same time, using mostly melee attacks and well-timed counterattacks. Combat flows so well and smooth you feel like you could fight for hours and hours and not even notice the time fly by. Arkham Asylum is the only game in the series that you can find to a more linear story. The other games are open world, gliding through Gotham City, flying the Batwing, cruising around in the Batmobile could not feel better. Voice acting for each game is well known in the industry for being top tier and really brings each character to life for the player. Arkham Asylum will run you about $20, but it's highly recommended you buy the set with all the games in this series, lock yourself in a room for a few weeks, and plow through them all ASAP. Sucker Punch Studios released Infamous back in 2009, and this one caught my eye immediately. This was really before the huge surge in superhero attention brought on by the Marvel movie franchise. The superhero style game done properly was really few and far between, so Infamous was a breath of fresh air for those waiting for something different. The story is great, and with the main mystery of what happened to you being the overarching driving force of your character's motivation to keep pushing for answers. The game has a karma system that as you make decisions to help the citizens or go on a more selfish path will affect not only how the people of the city interact with you, but also what skills become available to you. Combat style is very similar no matter what skills you choose to progress with. The interesting part about your character's skills are, though, that you're fueled by electricity. You have to suck electricity out of anything nearby to keep your powers available to you. Whether it be a train track, power lines, or a passing car, you'll always have to try to be resourceful to keep your powers in check. The success of the game led to several follow-up games which met with varied reviews. This game, being a bit aged and as a PlayStation exclusive, is a bit harder to find these days, but if you do, it will cost you only around about $10 to $15. This is one of the OG solid superhero games that sit outside the normal DC or Marvel universes and well worth a playthrough. LEGO Marvel Superheroes dropped in 2013 by developer Traveler's Tales and received positive reviews across the board. This title is by far the least intensive of the superhero games on this list, but that doesn't mean it's not one of the most fun. The devs carried forward the tried and tested LEGO humor and puzzles that players are familiar with the added action and powers of the entire Marvel universe. The game carries through an overarching story, but is based in an open-world atmosphere, encouraging players to get off the beaten track and explore those random side quests. The amount of superheroes you can unlock in this game is huge. You can spend an enormous amount of time doing just that. Taking into account the main story, unlocking characters, finding collectibles, and random events in the city, you could spend countless numbers of hours playing and not be bored. The huge advantage of this game is also the fact that it has multiplayer. Local same machine multiplayer games are almost non-existent in the current gaming landscape, and so to be able to plug in another controller and fly around with your buddy is very much a welcomed feature. Although the game is over 10 years old, there's no doubt that it still holds up to today's standards for an entertaining superhero game. You can pick up LEGO Marvel Superheroes for about $20, and I don't think there's been better value for money than this title. Prototype came out in 2009 by Radical Entertainment, and at the time was one of the very few games that provided a real superhero feel to the playstyle. The story, although a little predictable, still gave enough question marks to keep the player moving forwards. The very unique set of powers available to the player really varied the playstyle based on how you wanted to play the game. Not only could you make use of these amazing powers, but the added option of just picking up an M4 or an RPG from a downed AI and letting loose was a blast. Stealth was optional, other than the odd main story mission, but a really fun approach. You could absorb any human, be it soldier or civilian, and change into their form. It made escaping your pursuers or getting into military bases undetected actually fun to try. As you would expect from a game of this style, as you level you get more powers and more powerful, but the biggest reason I picked this game is actually the feeling of power you would get. You're not just fighting one person at a time, you're fighting multiple military units, including tanks, helicopters, and also other infected, all at the same time. The setting of being in close quarters cityscape also made it feel much more chaotic and action-packed. The game's success did bring forth a sequel, but it was not met with as much positive attention as the first one. The game was ahead of its time when released, and if you enjoy that feeling of really having power and flying around the city doing what you want to do, then do yourself a favor, grab this title for yourself. You should be able to find Prototype for about $20. There we go. Top 5 superhero games as I see it. Is there a game that is glaringly obvious should be in that list that I missed? I'm very sure you'll be more than happy to let me know what I missed in the comments below. Well, it's about that time of the day I go off and hunt for a radioactive spider or some sketchy underground scientists, so I should head out. If you haven't watched the top 5 horror game video already, now will be an amazing time to do that. Until next time, stay classy, tricksters.